Hi friends, I'm back and I have something new today. I have my husband here to share with us today, so we're going to do something a little bit different. But before we get to it, I do want to remind you all about the Gathering for the Righteous Reformation, which is next week. So we're about a week away. Today is Sunday, April 6th, and the gathering is in Dallas on Saturday, April 12th. And I know a lot of you have been saying that you're going to be there, and I can't wait to meet people that are going to be there. And there's also going to be, I believe, a live stream. So if you can't make it, get onto Laura Lynn's channel. I believe she'll have a link for that so that you can watch while we are having fun and getting together and sharing and all those things. So this is why I've brought my husband in. First of all, his name is Ray Johnson.
Hi.
And he has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the security field, in law enforcement training, in all kinds of professional certificates that he has. But the reason that I brought him in is because he has taught a lot. He's had his own company. Right now he does a bunch of other things, but he has taught a class that I thought about it and I was like, you know what, that kind of applies to just help people, because this is a channel where I provide commentary from a legal standpoint, but this is also a place where we can learn from each other. And so I like to share information that is helpful, and I believe that he will be helpful to you. So one of the classes that he has taught is called Psychological Profiling.
Yes.
Situational Awareness.
Yeah.
And you've taught it to lay people because you taught it at the church. In
Correct.
Churches.
Yeah, that's how I created it. I created it for a church reached out to me, and she asked if I taught a course where we can be like situational awareness and being aware of your surroundings and so forth. And I said, I don't teach one, but I can create one for you. And so I created, 3-4 hour course for her and her volunteers, so that they can just kind of read some people and nonverbal cues and things like that. What she did was she coordinated an outreach for multiple churches on the same day, and they provided like healthcare and food and dental and medical, and some of the individuals showing up were like single moms that had restraining orders against their boyfriends or husbands, and she wanted her volunteers to be able to recognize different cues and things like that either the children were giving off, the mom or even the dad, when somebody arrived that they were not comfortable with having them there.
So before we get into that, can you just tell us briefly about your experience, just your professional experience, just briefly?
Sure. I'm a military veteran. I was in the Air Force for about 12 and a half years. I served in Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I was a nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare instructor, taught that during the war and after. And then I got out of the military and spent about the next 10 years looking for a job like the military, and just couldn't find it in the general public. So I created my own business and started teaching firearms, tactics. I'm a trainer for ASP, and they send me all over the world to teach law enforcement agencies, certify them in baton, handcuffing, flashlight, tactics, and things like that. And that culminated into just now I work for a private company, and I teach in-house just their security officers. The same thing, medical, tactics, firearms, and that stuff.
And so going back to situational awareness, just in the context of church security and personal security, and I know your class is long because I've sat through it. So I'm figuring we have about maybe 30 or 40 minutes. And so just if you could give us a summary of what that class is about, but we're going to break it down a bit in like little baby bites. So what is the purpose of situational awareness? Why do you teach that?
Well, I teach it to basically give those individuals that are taking my class the vocabulary to put their finger. Everybody, we all do this naturally as human beings. our limbic system, our amygdala wants to keep us safe. It starts recording things from birth, what's a hazard, what's not a hazard, what is good for me, what is not good for me. And we start as children recording all of these things. And as adults, we do it naturally, just like driving your car. You can kind of almost guess what this person's doing by their mannerisms. We're looking at in their rearview mirror, in their head, in the back of their head, in their vehicle, and trying to determine, is this person even paying attention to driving? Are they on their phone? We're looking at their side mirror, and we're naturally looking for an out, okay, if this person slams on their brakes, can I make a left? Can I get in this lane? And so we naturally keep ourselves safe. It's that sixth sense, kind of that gut feeling. And when you meet somebody, if this person you're getting a weird feeling about this person, you kind of know, like, yeah, I don't want to stay around that person any longer than I have to. Or, and there's a great analogy that I used. An instructor of mine gave it to me, and he gave it to, like, there's a lady. She's standing at an elevator door, and the elevator opens up, and there's just this guy standing in there, and she gets this eerie feeling and this, like, oh, I don't think I should get in there, but she gets in it anyway, just because she didn't want to be rude. So why would you step into this iron box with somebody that you think is not good, or you get this crazy feeling or eerie feeling about it, and you lock yourself into this iron box with them? Why would you do that? You may never see that person again. Why don't you just wait for the next elevator?
It's funny you say that, because I was just thinking about that today. I do this all the time. There's one elevator bank that we have in the building in our office, but then there's a separate one in our parking garage. The one in the one in the building, I'm not concerned with. Everybody works there, but the parking garage is shared with all kinds of people who, they might be parking there and go to events and things like that. I'm not kidding you. Every time I go in there, I think about that. And there are people that are even coming from the building and going into the elevator, but just because there's so many people, and especially if there's not that many women and it's all men, I'll just wait for the next one.
Yeah. And the point that my instructor was trying to make, and I try to make to everybody, is trust your gut feeling. Forget about being politically correct. Forget about being rude. If no words are stated, you could fake it and just go, oh, I forgot something. Turn around. The elevator closes. Boom, you come back. You wait for the next one if you really don't want to be rude. But listen to that feeling. Listen to that gut feeling. 99% of the time, it's right.
Talk about going into malls and restaurants, like the things that you just do naturally, automatically now.
Okay, well, the first thing that we look at is environmental factors and atmospherics. In any general setting, there's a general atmospherics baseline that you establish for it. If you're in a food court, guess what? What is everybody doing in a food court? They're eating, they're talking, it's generally loud. People are paying attention to whoever's at the table. They're either getting food or going to a table to eat food. And that's your general baseline for that environment. The anomaly that you may spot, you may not spot it, but if you're paying attention, you'll probably spot it, is that guy or that female or that individual. Remember, profiling is not about profiling people, it's profiling behaviors. So that's where we want to differentiate. Profiling is not a bad word. Just remember, it's about behaviors. So you spot that individual at that table that's not eating, they don't have any food on the table, and they're just looking at other people. They're just looking and scanning and maybe staring. There's your anomaly. Now that's just one. Now we want to identify other factors. What's going on? What is this person paying attention to that they shouldn't be paying attention to, or they should be paying attention to? They might have food on the table. They should be eating it, right? That makes sense? Then you go into the general area of the mall. There's going to be a different atmospheric, right? It's generally open. It's going to be quieter because people know that if their voice is raised, it's going to echo. So it's going to be quieter. But what are people generally doing? Going to a store, coming from a store, going up to another level, coming down to another level. People are generally moving for a purpose. But then you spot this individual that's just on the railing and they're just watching people. They're looking and you're like, okay, either undercover security, might be a cop, might be somebody with a nefarious behavior or intentions. So those are your anomalies. And if you're paying attention and you're looking and and it's not something that it's like, oh my gosh, I'm spotting everybody. I'm looking at everybody. You naturally do it by just paying attention to your surroundings. And go ahead.
Oh, no. I was
sorry.
just going to say, there are times when, and just speak to this about how I had to get used to how he does this. It's just natural for him. It's starting to get natural for me. I mean, it's been 15 years, but talk about, like, I mean, this probably happened last week. I don't remember because it happens so often. We'll be somewhere out in the public and he'll just say, go that way. And I won't ask anymore. Talk about
That's
that.
right. Yeah. It took me about, I don't know, we've been married, 25 years?
No.
I mean 17, something like that. Anyway, yeah, it took me a couple of years to kind of get Vanessa on the same page as me. But, I used to tell her, if we're in a restaurant, if we're in public,
It's because it's moving.
it's moving that. Sorry about that. Sorry, folks. If I say we're leaving, I don't need to be deposed right then. What I need is for you to just say, okay, we leave. Then you can ask all your questions and I'll answer them, because I may have spotted something that you didn't notice, and we need to just get out of there. I mean, she knows what seat I'm going to sit in at the restaurant. I'm facing the door. Typically, I like to be in the back of the restaurant, not at the front. Just things like that. And she's right. She's correct. I might say, nope, we're going this way. Only because I didn't want to enter into an environment that I saw there might be a hazard. I might be wrong, but I'm not going to test it. If I get an uneasy feeling about somebody, a place, a person, or an environment, I'm just going to go. Our best tool for survival is avoidance. Just, if I see an alley this way and an alley that way, there's a riot down that alley. There's no riot down this alley. Let's go down that alley. Or this alley's lit and this alley's not lit. Why don't we go down the lit one? So just little things like that. And it just comes natural. If we're paying attention, it becomes easy. It becomes a lot easier.
I recall when you taught, you would always say to kind of just make this become something that you do, even as a game, the grocery store.
Oh yeah. I have always taught. I taught executive protection for quite a few years.
Explain what that is.
Executive protection is private security or close protection. Like I would be that person that is protecting, let's say, a pastor or a high profile in the VIP or whatever. And so I taught that within a course for another company. And I would always tell them that when we're out, my wife is my client. I'm there to protect her. I'm paying attention to the surroundings. I'm the one who is protecting her from going into Target and stop. There's a truck. It's bigger than you. Stop. Let's wait for the truck to go by. And so it's not a game to me, but I'm always training. I'm always practicing my trade craft. And like in the grocery store, you're in the grocery store, you're walking by an aisle, stop, look down the aisle for about 5 seconds, and then keep walking. And now start asking yourself questions. How many people were on the aisle? How many were walking towards you? How many were walking away from you? How many were females? How many were males? How many had carts? How many had baskets? How many kids were on the aisle? How many of the kids were in the carts? What color shirts did they have on? Long hair, short hair, bald, and so on. what you're doing is you're building a neural pathway for your limbic system that is telling you and telling your system that, wow, this must be important because he's going through all of this stuff. He's asking all these questions. And what'll happen is that neural pathway, you will start to unconsciously record things that you never knew you even saw until you recall it. So it's and if you need to make it a game, make it a game. Teach your children this stuff. It's good for teenagers. It's good for the young kids. Make it a game. Hey, little Jimmy, how many kids did you see down that aisle that we just passed? And what you'll see is the kids, they'll walk past an aisle and they'll go. And then you keep walking. And they're waiting for you to ask them a question. Hey, little Jimmy, how many kids were down that? 0. I saw no kids down that aisle. But I saw this big guy, bald head, had a Finding Nemo shirt on. Did he mean little Finding Nemo? No. It must have been Nemo. But anyway, it's, I joke. But it's fun.
But in the context, actually, that's really good in the context of what we talk about, because it's all about protecting children and just awareness, and that can help somebody. It just dawned on me with that. Just teaching your children about that, for them to be aware of those things, and that could be a game that you do, because think about, it's just going to expand their mind in that regard and be able to articulate what they saw. Could be a good witness, but it's certainly helpful.
Yeah, hey, mommy, I saw this guy on the last aisle that was staring at us, that was looking at us. He's been following us in the store the whole time. You just never know. So
didn't we just see something with that? I don't know. Maybe it was just me. Okay, I digress. Okay. Going back to, because I know you share about, when you teach about the clusters, and you were talking about that with the baseline.
Yeah.
And I know this is not going to be a full-fledged class.
Right.
And I apologize. I know you're used to doing that. But talk about that in the context of the Boston Marathon bombers, because that was very interesting.
Yeah. So the Sarnoff brothers.
Just for a foundation, the Boston Marathon, there were 2 bombers that were founded. This was 10 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and the way that the FBI found those perpetrators was really interesting. There's a TV movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's
Patriots
called.
Day?
Patriots Day.
Yeah,
yes.
with Mark Wahlberg. Yeah. They in real time used closed circuit TV, the video cameras and the cell phones from all of the victims and stuff, the camera angles and everything. And they used exactly that, the atmospherics, the environmental factors of what everybody should have been doing, and those 2 were not doing those things. And when something traumatic, let's say we call it being left of bang, we want to stay left of bang, but once bang goes off, what typically is going to be the human natural behavior for a traumatic event like that? Everybody's scared, there's fright on their face, they're trying to escape. Well, not for the brothers, because they were just walking like, that one went off, go into the next site to set off the next bomb. And that's how they spotted them in real time. Yeah, it took them 3 days to catch up to them, but they identified them probably within hours. They knew the 2 brothers. Hey, then they spotted the video where they're standing next to those 2 are together. We have 2 bombers. Now they're looking for both of them. And so in real time, me and Vanessa went to the movies to see that at the theater. As soon as they showed that scene of them spotting the brothers with all the CCTV and the cameras and the video, we looked at each other and went, that's exactly how it's done, just like that.
Because he teaches that.
Right. And so
so it was really cool to see in a movie.
And of course, you guys know the rest of the story of how they caught them in the other town, and then there was a shootout and so forth. But
you're looking for that anomaly,
right,
in every situation.
Yeah, you're looking for the anomaly. But now, can you be wrong? Sure, you can. But that's why we're looking for clusters of 3 anomalies. Maybe the person is not doing something that they should be doing, right? Maybe the person is doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And you identify that stuff, and then you look for more behaviors, maybe nervous cues, confident versus submissive behaviors, things of this nature. You're just looking for those nonverbal cues that don't fit the situation. And once you have a cluster of 3, then you're really paying attention to this, to the mannerisms, the behaviors, and so forth. So yeah, and once you have 3 clusters, you really should take notice, and now you're starting to naturally implement a plan. Possibly you're about to be attacked. Possibly something's about to go down. Something's about to happen, and now you can take action. It's those, the color codes, Cooper color codes. Everybody, the Cooper color codes: condition white, yellow, orange, red, and black. White, obviously you're not paying attention to anything. You might be sleeping, you might be in a theater, you might be, maybe you're sick. You're just basically, you couldn't respond even if you needed to, because you're not paying attention. Then of course yellow, you're completely aware of your surroundings. You're paying attention to the nonverbal cues, the people and what they're doing in that environment. And then you go into orange because you've spotted something. You've seen something that's caught your attention. Now you're looking for maybe a little bit more information just to validate your suspicions. And then boom, now you know something's about to go down. You go into condition red. Either you're defending yourself, or you're escaping, or you're getting off of that X, you're getting out of that situation. The condition that you never ever want to find yourself in is condition black, where you freeze. You don't know what to do. You don't have a plan. And the main reason people go into condition black, where they freeze and is because they've never thought about these situations. They've never created a neurological plan, or they've never conditioned themselves to take action when needed. There's a saying in my industry: nobody rises to the occasion. They fall back to their highest level of preparation or training. So, and like I said, you could be in the store, you're training. When I'm with her out in general public, I'm training. I'm always training. So,
there's so many scenarios that we can talk about, and things that you would always tell people not to do that we see people do all the time. Just think about your everyday. If you go out running or walking and you have earbuds on, you're taking away one of your senses.
That's right. Yeah. You put earbuds in, or you're staring at your phone. The 2 most critical senses that you need to defend and protect yourself are sight and hearing. So you've eliminated one, so you're not going to hear the truck coming from behind blowing his horn, get off the street or get out of the way, or that vehicle that's plowing through a carnival, or a street fair, vendor's fair or something, because you've got earbuds in. You're staring at your phone. I'll tell you what, do me a favor, go on the internet, type in people falling into water fountains while talking on phone. Enjoy yourself. You'll have hours of entertainment. Why? Because they're not paying attention to their surroundings, and their face is buried in their phone. So,
yeah. Before I switch over to something else, talk about a specific. I like teaching. You know how I like to teach about with hypotheticals. Right. There was a time that you had a bolo in regard to Heidi Baker. So Ray used to do a lot of security for ministries, not some churches, but it was mostly like if there was a big
speakers
conference. Yeah. And so there was an interesting thing that happened with Heidi Baker. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a really good one. So we, myself and a buddy of mine, we did so much security together that we can kind of read each other's mind. All we had to do was look at each other, and we knew we knew where to be, how to do it, and what to do. We had been doing security for so long, and he was always the close protection for Heidi Baker. Big, huge guy, just giant. Heidi Baker's like 4'10", and he's like 10'4". So I was always his backup. I was basically his Overwatch for him. Now we had other members of the security team. They were scattered about, but I happened to be. We had the bolo of
Explain what that is.
a bolo. Be on the lookout for this individual. Apparently, the backstory is this individual had been basically following Heidi Baker all over the world, just kind of stalking her. Now it was a female. She had never posed a threat up until this particular conference when she showed up to Heidi Baker's hotel room. Knock, knock, knock. Heidi Baker opens the door. She's like, "Oh, I just want to be your friend. Hey, I just really admire you." Blah, blah. You know, not so much dangerous, but very, very alarming that this person would go so far as to find the location of Heidi Baker, what room she was in, and then show up there. You know, borderline crazy. So, as you younger folks, cray. So, anyway, so we're watching her, or watching for her. Now, my buddy is with Heidi Baker. Heidi Baker is praying and doing her laying on hands with all these people up on the floor right in front of the stage. I'm blocking one of the aisles. And so I'm standing there and I look over to my left and I see our bolo. And I'm like, that looks like our bolo. So I look at my buddy and I just look at the bolo and he looks at me and goes, and I went, okay, cool. At that moment, she gets up, walks over to the aisle and beelines it to the back. And we're like, what in the world? Now she had this big bag with her. She beelines it to the back. So I follow her and I follow her up to the female bathroom. At that time, we didn't have a female security with us. So I just had to wait outside, and she goes in, she comes out, totally changed her hair, changed her clothes, totally a different look to this individual. And I was like, all right, we got something here. So now my buddy has eyes on her, but I'm leading her. I'm not following her. I'm leading her back down so that I could be in the aisleway before she reached it, because we didn't want her to beeline straight out there to Heidi. So she comes back down. Boom. She goes back over to the aisle. She puts her bag down. And then she comes over like she wants to come out to where everybody is. I just threw the ball to my dog. He's over here. She comes over to the aisle like she wants to go out there, and I stand in front of her, and I go, "Ma'am, it's too crowded. We're not letting anybody else on the aisle." She looks at me, and then she tries to go around me this way, and I'm like, "No, not going to happen, ma'am. Sorry, you're going to have to go back to your seat." Now she goes over back to her seat. Now remember, she's in aisle 2, so there's a row of seats in front of her, and I'm watching her, and she is leaning on the back of the seats that are in front. So what do you think I think she's about to do? Yeah, she's probably going to jump over the seats. So I beeline it over to the front row, and I'm standing in front of her, and I'm just staring at her. She's staring at me. If looks could kill, I would not be here today. I just stand there and I just shook my head. I went, not going to happen. And she literally looks at me and she goes fetal position down on the floor in her aisle. I mean, literally like, boom. She goes condition black. She didn't know what to do. And she's just fetal position right there on the floor. And I look over and I go, all right, this is easy. And I just stay there. Heidi does her thing. My buddy escorts Heidi off the stage. He radios in, "Hey, she's off property." And I went, "All right, cool, we're done here." Boom, and I go about my business. She didn't commit any crimes. She didn't do anything harmful or anything like that. She probably, I would say, 30 minutes later, she finally pops her head up and she looks around, sees that nobody's there. She grabs her bag and hightails it out of there. All good.
We watched a video the other day. I can't remember if it was yesterday or what day it was anymore because I don't know the time. But remember the Laura Lynn video, and then she had in there, it was about a church, and then on top of it, it said, "Come to my church. It's cool or chill." And then it says "my church," and it's that whole situation, let me just do the foundation of it, where the guy, there's a pastor and then there's the whole congregation, you can see him, and then somebody comes up and then he's like going crazy on the guy.
Yeah, he has a Bible in his hand. And he's like, I just want you to read a verse. Well,
he's like, give me some grace, and then he starts going off on the guy. So we all, if you haven't seen it, look at it. That's what's on one of Laura Lynn's recent videos, but that's what's happening, that somebody comes up. Now, I want to ask you, just in that context, if you were on the security team, how would you have handled that?
Well, first of all, that individual would have never made it into the camera's view. Not only should somebody have spotted him coming down the aisle, but they should have read that body language that this guy looks like he's going up on the stage. And not to mention the security team that comes from our right, looking at the video, he's already on the pastor. If that individual had a knife or had an inclination to do harm to the pastor, it would have been done. That's it. He made it way too close to the pastor for any of the security team to basically thwart that hazard or that danger. We can armchair it all day. We can go, what if, or I would have done this, and we weren't there. The bottom line is, but based off of the information we gathered from the video, that individual got way too close to the principal, and that's the bottom line.
What about de-escalation? Can you talk to us about that? Like in the context when you were doing security? Yeah,
de-escalation is very, very important. It's very important if you're going to assign somebody to be part of your de-escalation team, it's important for all of us to be able to talk to individuals in such a manner that it doesn't escalate versus, de-escalate the situation. That's important. I remember doing a job for a church, and I was coming back off of dinner, and I was driving in, and I just happened to spot a glimmer of something shining. Now it was nighttime when I was coming down the road,
and this is in the middle of a conference.
Yes, this is in the middle of a conference, and I spotted a glimmer. This is actually the end of the conference, because and there's an individual that comes out of the tree line. Now remember, most of the people are already gone. So we've ushered everybody out and everybody's going home. This individual comes up, so I park and I beeline it over towards this individual. So I'm like, hey, can I help you? And I've got my torch out, which is a flashlight. I got my flashlight out, and I'm just getting something. All right, well, that's cool. What are you getting, man? That's none of your business, And I'm like, hey, bro, the conference is over. Everybody's leaving. We just need you to vacate the property, blah, blah, blah. And he just kept not answering my questions. Now, by this time, I have my other team members. They have approached. Now, we're kind of surrounding him, but they're off back. They're off a ways from him, 30, 40 feet. And I'm addressing the individual. And now, this team I've worked with quite a bit too, and we have this technique, what we call it's a tap out. And if I'm not getting anywhere with an individual, one of my partners will come up and they'll just tap me on the shoulder, and I know it's time for me to back up, become Overwatch, and give them a shot. They will take over and talk to the person and see if they can break through or de-escalate the situation. While this individual was talking to me, I was like, sir, could you keep your hands where you can see them? Don't reach in your bag. And he reaches out into his bag immediately and yanks something out. And he says, what, are you afraid of a comb? And I'm like, dude, don't do that, man. Honestly. Now, I can see behind him my partner, and he's like this. He's like basically standing behind him like this. I already know what that means. His hand's ready to draw his firearm. Now, I noticed that the individual that I was speaking to is right here. My partner's directly behind him. So I kind of went, I shifted off the X and put an angle because obviously I didn't want to be in a crossfire if this dude started doing something. And but my buddy comes up, he taps me out, he takes over the situation because obviously I was not getting anywhere, and he goes, "Hey man, where are you from?" Blah blah blah, and he just starts talking to him. And he's like, "Man, I'm just trying to get my bicycle. It's over there, and I took a train here, and I don't have any money to get back, and I don't know what I'm going to do." And he's like, "Well, how much do you need for a train?" He goes, "Like, I need like $5 more." My buddy reaches in his pocket and he goes, "Dude, here's a 10. Dude, be blessed." And he's like, "Oh man, thanks a lot. Thanks, I appreciate that." And he goes and gets his bike and he vacates. Sometimes you're not the person. That's all. And don't get all butthurt because your partner's taking over or something. Sometimes you're not the person to de-escalate the situation. I mean, I'm a pretty aggressive guy. I look pretty aggressive, especially when I walk up to you. "Hey, what are you doing?" I didn't walk up to him like that. I know how to de-escalate, but he just wasn't having it. And so
He just didn't like you.
yeah, he just didn't like me.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. Exactly. But it all ended well. My buddy knew what to do. He did it, and all's well. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got it was good. The situation ended. But yeah, that's
awesome.
That was a fun story. That goes way back.
It does. It does. I mean, there's so much that we could talk about, but I just, wanted to just bring you on here just to share a bit, just to, for my audience to hear something different. Maybe I hope that this kind of helps, just think about things in just personal security. And I used to teach with Ray just a very, very small portion. He used to teach a whole bunch of classes. I used to teach the law on justifiable use of force. And I would give a lot of hypotheticals, and I would also just share some tidbits of security, just stuff that I would learn from Ray, especially if you're a female, you're alone, you really have to be careful. You don't have to have a firearm. There's other non-lethal defensive mechanisms, and there's pepper spray, and even a whistle will help, but it's really being aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and when I bring, and I'm sorry, but I don't remember the names of everybody that you guys are engaged with.
It's okay.
But like the couple that kind of like started this whole, the daughter from the church, there is their daughter from the church.
Oh, Daystar?
Daystar.
Okay.
And they both, the parents of the child.
Jonathan and Susie?
Yes.
Okay.
If you ask them, and I'm sure you all have talked to them, they knew something was off.
In what context? With
of the perpetrator?
Oh, okay.
They knew, they saw the things that hey, my daughter's going to change into her bathing suit. Somebody's following her. Those are the types of things that I'm talking about. Act on them. Don't. Yes. If you see something, don't get politically, well, I don't want them to think that I thought that they were gonna, you just go protect your child, period. End of discussion. Do not care. I mean, do you have to say something? No. You just say, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna come with you, sweetie." Did you just protect her from something that you might have thought was gonna happen, but it didn't? Absolutely you did. That way you don't end up in a situation where he was in the bathroom, she was in the bathroom, we were too late. You know what I mean? So just pay attention. It's really that simple. Just pay attention. Pay attention to the warning signs, and you don't have to put a finger on it like it was this. Sometimes it's just a feeling. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling.
Yeah, you don't always have to have a label on it because we're always processing what we're thinking. I still do it now, which I'm going to get into in just a second about that. But I wanted to share about stuff that's I'm seeing on social media right now about IHOP, and but I'll talk about that in a minute. Is there anything else that you want to share before we close? Because I'm going to let you go, and I'm just going to finish it up.
No, I'll see you later. No.
Thanks, Ray.
You're welcome. Not real. Just, even if you go, just be aware of what's going on around you. That's the biggest thing that I see. And I know you can get a million hits if you just type in people being unaware, you know. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. 9 times out of 10, it's correct. I do a lot of, just trust your gut.
Were you going to go into something else?
Yeah, I was going to go into something else.
Well,
but
you can.
Well,
It's
no,
okay.
it was just, even if have you ever been driving down the road and you're like, man, I knew I should have turned back there. You should have just trusted that. I mean, I'm to the point in my life now, if I forget my phone at home, I don't get mad. I just look at it as, wow, I had to turn around, go all the way back to the house, get my phone or get something. I forgot something. The Lord must have been protecting me. He didn't want me on the highway at that particular moment. And I may never know if that's true or not. I just trust that he was protecting me. That's it. And it's really that simple.
Yeah.
I don't get mad if I forget something or anything anymore. It's just like, gotta go get my phone. Forgot those papers. Oh man, I'm low on gas. I gotta get gas. Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. All right.
Do you want me to leave?
You don't have to. I'm just going to, you can stay here. I'm just going to share a couple of things.
Okay.
If you want to listen, that's fine.
No, I think I'm going to go play with my dog.
Okay.
See y'all later. Yeah, enjoy. Love you, bub.
Love you. So I just wanted to share a couple of things that has been out just in the last couple of days even. First off, about IHOP. That seems to be coming up again. Brother John had a video recently and he was talking about Art Lucier, which you guys know, Laura Lynn, that's her pastor, was her pastor, and please continue to pray for her because all this exposure is happening. Hey Ray, can you come here for a second? Can you hear me? Yeah. There was something that he shared, now that I just thought of it. Remember we were talking about the tip of the iceberg?
Oh yeah.
So this is what I wanted. I just remembered it. But what we're seeing is with the exposures, it's the tip of the iceberg, right?
Right.
And then I was just talking to you about that today and you said something that was very profound. I hope you can say it again.
Yeah, I can. I remember. So if you've ever watched one of those videos where you're watching, an iceberg and a piece breaks off of that iceberg, what happens to the iceberg? What it does is it changes the center of gravity and the weight of the iceberg. So you may be, just a small piece breaks off of that iceberg, and what it does is all of its weight shifts, and then it exposes another piece of that iceberg, which may be twice, 3 times, 4 times as large as the little piece that you were breaking off. And when Vanessa mentioned that, that is what you all are doing. You are chipping away at this iceberg where only this much is on top of the water. And you guys have already broken pieces off, and that iceberg has shifted, and now all of this other stuff is being exposed. Same with the Trump administration and Doge. They are just scratching the surface of all of this fraud, waste, and abuse, and it's exposing. And even Elon has mentioned, he goes, we weren't even looking for this, but look what we found. And that's that iceberg shifting its weight and now exposing all of this other stuff. So keep doing what you're doing because it means something. Exposure and us being aware of a situation is the first part to basically getting rid of it and doing something about it. Because that's why they hide in the shadows. That's why they do all of their stuff in darkness. And typically, all the people that rise up against what is right or what is being exposed, those are the people that you need to look at the most.
Yes. Thank you very
much. If I had a mic, I would drop it, but I don't have a mic. So there you go. Mic drop. So there you go. Enjoy.
Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome.
So, in regard to something that Brother John shared about Art Lucier, and it just came up and I didn't even realize that Dean Briggs was somehow associated with him. If you don't know who Dean Briggs is, I'm just talking to the IHOP community, if there's any IHOP people out there. Well, he was one of the ones that, stood up against the ELT, the executive leadership team or committee or whatever, when the Mike Bickle exposure was going on back in October of 2023, and he raised up against it. And he was an advocate speaking up against, the abuse and all of that. And then, it's confusing. That's my point, is that sometimes we're going to see things in this exposure realm that's a bit confusing, because I'm seeing it myself. And another instance that just came up about IHOP this week, Julie Roys interviewed Shelley Hunley. Now, Shelley Hunley was a leader at IHOP, and people are just praising that interview. I've said before, and I'm not saying that, somebody's bad and somebody's good. It's just that I personally know of people that didn't have a good experience with Shelley Hunley. So it's not my story to tell. I know of another situation that she said on Julie Roys that she couldn't talk about. And, it involves the murder, Red Rum investigation or death or life resignation, whatever investigation of Bethany Deaton. And there's a lot to that, and you can research that. So it was a bit troubling for me to see that wasn't talked about, and when there was stuff that could be talked about. It's not that. That's just my opinion. Okay, I'm just leaving it at that. My point is, in this regard, is that I think we're going to see things that can get confusing, because we're going to be like, well, I thought that person was an advocate, or I thought that person, opposed this or that, or was on the side of justice and truth. And sometimes, they might be in one instance, but not in another. And I just got that when I was thinking about it this week, that I think we're going to see that a little bit more. I don't know. I'm not prophesying. I'm just, it's just life experience. And as these exposures are happening, there's going to be so much uncovering. It's just that layer upon layer. So don't be surprised. Like I said, it's a matter of processing, having a good group of people that you can process with, talking about things, things that you normally would see, but maybe you didn't put a label on it that could be concerning. Now you might have a label on it. It's just something that you put in, you store in the back of your mind, and you think, this is something to just be concerned with, or just I'll visit that at a later time or whatever. I hope that makes sense. But anyhow, this was a little bit longer than I wanted to. I want to remind you again, I am just so looking forward to meeting those that are going to be at the Reformation meeting that we're having in Dallas. I can't wait. I'm really excited. I look forward to meeting all the podcasters. It's going to be a great time. And I have another video that I'm working on. It's going to take a little bit. I'm going to try to do another video before I go on the trip. But you know what? I'm going to have videos probably that Friday when we meet with podcasters, and hopefully we all will. And let's just have a good time until the next video.